Hi, I'm Andrew, co-founder of Batch Brewing Company. Welcome back to Beerducation. Today, we're going to be talking about trends and what's new in the Australian drink scene. Our world's been turned upside down over the past few years and our drinking habits have changed. And it's been harder than ever to predict these beer trends. Things like hazy pale ales are still around. Big fruited sours, people love them. The resurgence of classic beer styles like European lagers and pilsners, people love those too. And even things like low alcohol and no alcohol beers are starting to cement their place in the Australian landscape. Or the rise of seltzers and things like ginger beers. They're making a huge play on the market right now. So let's start with the hazy pale ales. Now, I know you're all familiar with Batch's Golden Beams Pale Ale. And then we have Mountain Culture's Status Quo. It just won the Gab's Hottest 100, so let's give that one a try. So New England IPAs, hazy IPAs, whatever you want to call it, they've been around for the past few years. But people are shifting away from the big ABV hits that they were getting in those NEPAs. And that's the hazy pale ale. The hazy pale ale still deliver big aroma hits, nice pillowy softness on the mouthfeel, and a lower ABV, so it makes it a bit more sessionable. And with that, we think the hazy pale ale is probably going to be sticking around for a little while. So our next category is classic European styles. Here we have Augustiner Helles and Bayreuther Helles. People are really falling back in love with these. We're going to open up the Augustiner just so you can have a look at it. Over the past few years, the supply of some of these European styles has been a bit hit and miss due to market forces. And as we've been drinking local beers, our flavor profiles have enhanced. But recently, some of us are starting to go back to some of the subtle and nuanced flavors that these beers provide, showing a large appreciation for the craftsmanship that's gone into hundreds of years in making these beers. The other ones that are coming along for the ride are Czech Pilsners and some Belgian styles as well. This particular beer was created in 1894 and is one of my personal favorites. The reason why this is one of my favorites, it's got a well-rounded malt flavor, high drinkability, and a nice balanced bitterness. Following our last category, this is the Aussie take on classic European styles. Let's give White Bay's Gantry Crane a go. So whilst we love classic European styles, we can't always get our hands on fresh versions of those, which is the reason why Australian breweries are also brewing these classic styles. So here in Sydney, we have Sunday Road, Batch's Las Vida, and White Bay's Gantry Crane. And south of the border, you can get Stompy Ground's Czech Pils. So two great classic examples are Sunday Road and White Bay, which are faithful recreations of the Czech Pils style, particularly in Pilsner Urquell and Staropramen. Many of the tap rooms are now including the Czech side pour, which is a great way to drink this beer. So if you're lucky enough to see a side pour, make sure you grab one. It's nice, thick, and foamy. And of course, I need to mention the Batch Las Vida. Alongside these two faithful recreations is a New World take on the Pilsner style. All right, now let's talk about sours. I'm gonna pour double take from one drop. So this category is an interesting one because we're kind of blending a few different things here. You had the evolution of sours and then big fruited sours like Chapeau, 6.4%, lots of fruit, lots of tartness. But then you have things like pastry stouts. Pastry stouts have come in with huge amounts of additives, big flavor, big ABVs. Slam those two things together and you get these big fruited sours. Big 10.5% beers, lots of haze, lots of fruit. It's an explosion of flavor and your brain and your wallet. So these pastry sours are the next evolution from the pastry stouts that we've talked about in previous Beerducation episodes. Go check it out. So a lot of these big pastry sours will contain lactose, and you may also hear them referred to as smoothie sours, which is kind of like this mixture between a big smoothie kind of milkshake type thing. And so while there are all multiple variants to these schmoozies, the one thing they all contain is a shitload of fruit. This beer has 420 grams of passion fruit to the liter. That's an equivalent of 3 passion fruits per can. It's insane. All right, let's talk about some mid-strength beers, and we're gonna open Wayward's Hazy Mid. So on the complete opposite side of the spectrum of those big pastry sours, we've got the more sessionable mid-strength beers. So people are moving towards lower ABVs to balance their beer consumption and also something that fits in with their broader lifestyle. So one of the common misconceptions when you're drinking a lower ABV beer is that you're reducing flavor. Well, the great thing that's happened over the past few years is that the breweries putting out these mid-strength beers are not sacrificing flavor. So for the first time, consumers can go out there and have a great beer at a lower ABV and awesome flavor. So here, the Wayward Hazy Mid ticks a couple different boxes. You got the Hazy Pales, very popular these days, and also the growing mid-strength category. Hazy Mid uses oak for a rounded mouthfeel, and then a nice amount of tropical hops gives it a great aroma. And now we have the no and low alcohol category. I've got Heaps Normal, and I'm gonna open that and give it a go. Traditionally, low and no alcohol beers has been left to the mega breweries. You just needed too much equipment to actually make a beer that had no alcohol in it. But the advent of some yeast technology has meant that a lot of craft breweries are able now to brew low and no alcohol beers without all the big equipment of the mega breweries. And now, there's pretty much a non-alcoholic beer flavor for anything that suits your fancy. Let's talk about seltzers and ginger beer. Now we're gonna pour this Dayton alcoholic ginger beer. First, we'll talk about ginger beer. It's not a new style by any means, but recently this has been growing in popularity. And part of that reason could be because of seltzers. So the advent of seltzers came around a few years ago, but it started hitting our shelves in 2019. And seltzers is a growing category and a great option for people who are looking for something very refreshing with less carbs. And furthermore, they're awesome in the hot Australian climate. Well, that's it, guys. Thanks for joining us on Beerducation. We'll see you again soon.